Hey everybody, what's up? I hope you are crushing it wherever you are in the world. Now, needless to say, this is a crazy market, right? The stock market is back into the 29,000 territory. Millions of people seem to be out of work. We have record low rates, and there is no inventory. There's almost no houses out there to sell, or so it seems. And you can look at these stats and go, so what, right? What I know is that when you have dichotomies like this, right? You have stock market at record highs, you have rates really low and no inventory, and a ton of people out of work. I can just look at that and know something is out of sync. And when the markets are out of sync or seem to be out of sync, there is opportunity somewhere. This is how I think I look at the market. And I think a lot of people see that. And I think there's a lot of people listening that would love, they're looking for an opportunity in the market. They would love to take advantage of market dynamics. But for many of us, for the vast majority of people, they will not take advantage of either the market or their skills for one reason. And the reason people will not take advantage of opportunities that are right in front of them is that we all have limiting beliefs. Now, for one person, that limiting belief, their reason might take the form of, I don't have enough money, or I don't have the right experience, or I don't have the right connections. It might sound like I'm too old, or I'm not good with technology, or whatever it sounds like in your life. But we all have things that hold us back. And they seem to be, when we say them out loud to other people, they seem like they're good reasons. But this reason, or while this reason, will take many forms. I coach all sorts of entrepreneurs, right? All stripes, ages, income, and ability. And I see it all the time. We all have these limiting beliefs that hold us back. And sometimes it takes sort of a special experience, right? Sometimes it takes disaster for us to sort of look back and go, oh, wait a second. That was not a reason for me not succeeding. That was my own limiting belief holding me back. Now, today's guest shares with us how today's guest shares with us how he identifies limiting beliefs and how he has learned to overcome them and how he coaches people to do that. Before we get to the episode, I will tell you that today's episode is brought to you by my broker, eXp Realty. Now, right now, agents that have virtual businesses have the advantage. And eXp has been built up from the ground up. I think I said that weird, but eXp has been built from the ground up as a virtual broker. And that's why they're able to pay out the highest splits. They give all their agents the best tools, including a custom website, a CRM, which is KV Core, which one of my coaching clients uses this, and he pays $1,000 a month for. I've been telling him he needs to join me at eXp. But eXp gets you more training than any other brokerage. And to top all this off, right, the best tools, the best splits, the most training, to top all this off, they have a revenue share program that is allowing agents to make an additional $3,000 to $5,000 a month just by sharing the message. So if you want to know more, if you want to join my team, give me a call. 619. By the way, this is my cell number. 619-301-0823. That's 619 for San Diego, 301-0823. Now, if you think you're at the right brokerage, but you just need more leads, I'll share with you that radio is hands down the best way to get come list me leads. I've done every kind of marketing and advertising available to man, and I've never seen a machine like radio. My Radio Expert is the only agency that works only with realtors. Now, they'll find you the right station in your market, they negotiate rates, and they write killer ad copy. If you want to take advantage of this fast-moving market, you need to sign up for the pros over at My Radio Expert right now. Don't get fooled into paying Zillow or Facebook for buyer leads. Who wants buyer's leads? I don't want them. Not when you can have come list my house leads from radio. You can find out more at myradioexpert.com. You can fill out the getting started sheet, or you can send me an email to superagentslive@gmail.com. All right. Hey, let's get to this episode about limiting beliefs. Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first $1 million in real estate. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
Today on the show, I'm thrilled to have today's guest. He is an expert marketer. He has a background in Silicon Valley, so he kind of translated some of that into real estate. And we're going to uncover how you get over your limiting beliefs. I'm thrilled to welcome Rohan Atravanam. Did I say that right, Rohan?
Yes.
Right.
You almost got it right.
Almost 90% there.
Pretty close.
Well, listen. Again, I'm really, really stoked to have you on. We're going to get into what you're doing and what you learn in your whole journey, but take a minute and tell everybody a little about who you are, and then we'll get into what you're doing.
Great. So I have been in real estate for about 5 years now, and I've been a marketer pretty much all my life. But what I'm doing right now is I work with a lot of these realtors and help them market themselves better, coach them and uncover some of their limiting beliefs, and essentially help them set up good marketing systems for themselves so that they can focus on their lead generation and get more sales for themselves.
Right. And so you jumped to what you're doing now. We like everybody wants to know, like, how did you get here? So give us some of your background for it to take shape, and here's the thing, right, Rohan? If people are listening, and we're recording all this, by the way, but people are listening, people often hear what people say they're doing, right? And many times you will hear people, whether it's at a conference or wherever, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm a social media expert," and I'm like. And for me, I'm like,
right.
People say all sorts of stuff, and I go, okay, what's your background? And then I dig into it a little bit. I find out, oh, right, they just happen to, they have a little success in one thing, and then they start to say, I'm an expert, which is obviously garbage.
Yeah.
So, okay, give everybody a little taste of where you've been, and how that meshes into what you're doing today.
Great. So, So I was born in India. I mean, I started practically from nothing. This was a middle-class family in India. So I had great ambition. Through one means or the other, I saw how hard my dad worked, and his ambition and his passion kind of rubbed off. So I went on to the SAT equivalents in India. I scored I was the top 100 candidates out of over 200,000 students that wrote the exam that got me into admission in one of the Ivy Leagues in India. So this was starting from nothing. So put in a lot of hard work. And then I went on to be a software engineer for Samsung. For 4 years, I developed mobile applications on one of the first touchscreen phones for Samsung, right? The very first Galaxy phone. When iPhone launched, Samsung was like, oh, I need to compete also. So worked on that. And then in 2011, I came to US. I did my MBA in marketing. And I did marketing, built products for companies like Whirlpool, Walmart, Safeway, and things like that. And then I switched over into real estate marketing. I worked for Realtor.com for about 3 years. Did their SEO, did their marketing, and was a senior product manager for 10X Commercial. This was in San Mateo in Silicon Valley, right? So grew all the way from nothing to one of the very successful senior product managers in Silicon Valley. And then I wanted to do this was a churn. 9 to 5 was taking too much, and I was not growing enough, and my passions and ambitions were not getting realized. So I left everything, and now I'm starting from scratch again. So this Jan 2020 is when I started from scratch again. And I have a lot of principles that I used to be successful before. And now I'm using those principles that I've learned to be successful again. And in the last 6 months, we grew our company to about 25K a month in revenue.
Okay, that's great. So let's go back a little bit because, there was a lot there that I sort of picked up, right? So number one, you saw how hard your dad worked and you had a ton of ambition. And it just so happened, right, that you just are a super smart guy and however they tested for Ivy Leagues in India. But my first question is, like, when you have ambition, right, because a lot of people have ambition, right? They have big ideas, big dreams, and they never achieve them. And so, my question to and the other side of it, Rohan, right, is some people have big ambition, they realize their ambition, and then they realize, oh my God, right, like it's not all it's cracked up to be. When you say you had ambition early on, ambition towards what end?
So I guess the first ambition was to not have my life defined by how much me or my family made from a monetary standpoint. Like, I didn't want that to define how I lived. I didn't want that to define how I helped others. And that was a huge limiting factor for me to achieve or to get the things that I wanted to get, right? So that kind of drove my every single fiber in me to get out of it. And that kept me pushing. And ambition, like a lot of people have ambition, and one of the reasons a lot of people don't realize it, in my experience, is they're kind of all over the place. Like, they have ambition, they have a very strong why, but so the reason I was able to be successful was I focused on just one thing for the next 4 years. And that was my incremental growth. So my whole aim and ambition was to get into these Ivy League universities in India.
Yeah.
That was my step one. And I did whatever it took to get there.
And okay, that makes more sense to me. So you're saying, what I think I heard you say, Rohan, is that your ambition was prior to you having money, right, or being successful in a financial way, right, that limited your opportunities, right? So you couldn't help yourself.
Right.
There's just things that are just out of your reach, and you're like, I want to open that door up. I want to open that door so that, and who knows what happens after I get access to opportunities.
Right.
And okay, and then all right. So you how I heard it was, so you made it into the Ivy Leagues, right? So you're a guy that's buckling down, 12 hours a day studying, or maybe not, right? Depending on how smart you are. Then you become an engineer, right? So you're a math oriented guy. How most engineers, right? They're I've worked with a ton of them, and I kind of know how their brain works. But math is just math, right? Like 2 + 2 always equals 4, and a lot of those sort of engineer types have a hard time when it comes to stuff that is more artful, like marketing, right? Like 2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4 in marketing, right? 2 + 2 can equal 0. 2 + 2 could equal 80, right? If you do it right in terms of marketing. Did you have a hard time sort of rewiring your brain to go from very predictable equations and formulas to something that is highly unpredictable in many ways? So
I guess here's one thing where I differ, right? In how I was growing to be an engineer. So engineer was not my natural instinct. It was not my natural passion. And engineering is a little more than 2 + 2. It has to do more with structures and logic.
Yeah.
And I was that is something that was not natural to me, and that is something that I developed. But growing up, I was heavily involved in extracurriculars. So my dad never lived. So we as a family, we never lived in one single location for more than 4 years ever in my life.
Wow.
So I have been constantly moving, and with that move comes a lot of things associated with it. So I constantly kept making new friends and losing old friends. Mm-hmm. So I got really, really good at speaking with people, talking to people, understanding people. So I was naturally good at the artsy kind of stuff, right? And then my education kind of drove me towards the structure, the methodical piece of engineering. And that's why I could not be a software engineer for long. I was a software engineer for 4 years, but that was not my passion. So I left that and I pursued my passion towards marketing.
Well, okay. And again, so that's a great story. But a lot of these things, when I do these episodes, I'm sort of listening for tactics at some level. I'm also kind of trying to listen for strategies, and then more than that, I'm really sort of interested in diversion points, right? Like where there's a fork in the road, and why did you take the left one, and how has that made all the difference? So your ambition, man, right? Like the thing driving you is to open up doors, right? And you and I know, right? So you can go get an Ivy League education, and that opens up some doors, but you have to perform. Yep. And now I'm sort of hearing you like say, oh, well, my whole ambition in life, my whole goal in life is to change my family's trajectory, right? Put them on sort of a different plane. And then you have the fortitude to say, okay, I'm going to drop this thing that is a relatively stable path, right? I'm going to do the 9 to 5, make 6 figures being an engineer and add 10% to that income every year. You said, forget it. I'm a gambler now. Right. I'm going to move from what I know and what has gotten me, like worked for you, right? Like got you into Ivy Leagues, and I'm going to go towards my passion. That's a great story, and I hear that kind of story all the time. But I always sort of question it a little bit because mainly not that it's not true, but because I want to know why. So how were you able to do that? Because I have to assume, right? Your parents are extremely proud of you. You get this, you get into these Ivy Leagues and open up doors and move to America, and now all of a sudden you're risking it all because if you're starting your own thing, right? It's boom or bust, man, and most people go bust. So how did you manage that both internally as well as in your family?
So it all had to do with evaluating opportunity, right? What's the downside? So I always, whenever I'm making decisions, I try to maximize my upside and minimize my downside. So here was the downside. So if I was in India, I was making like $20,000 a year back in, I'm dating myself now, this was back in 2006, 2007, right? And with that, like at 10%, you know very well how much it would, like 10 years, 20 years from now, I would not be where I wanted to be.
Yes.
So I didn't have a lot of upside with just that kind of education and that kind of opportunity back then.
Got it.
So my alternate path was spend 100 grand, 150 grand, get an MBA, and then with that, the downside is I'll have a huge loan if I don't succeed, and I'll work the rest of my life to pay that off. The upside is I can probably pay that off in a few years, and then there is no limit to how much I can scale.
Right. Okay. All right. So that makes that's okay. That becomes a lot more compelling. So if I say it over again, right? So if I say this, if I replay it over again, so you're making and you have an Ivy League education. You're working in India. You're making 20 grand, and just the standard scale of 20 grand to 22 to 24, right?
Yep.
It would have taken you forever to actually get anywhere. Financially, and of course, right, without that financial component, there's lots of opportunities that you're blocked out from. So you were seeing this as, I'm going to risk it all, but at the end of the day, even if it doesn't work, I'm going to fundamentally be in the same position anyway, right? I'm going to be now working, but now I'm just paying off my student loan. But the upside could be 10x. So look, I think, I'm often, people listen to the show and everybody has big dreams. But like this thing, like, I coach a lot of people, but this thing's really hard to get through to people, right? Like the ultimate upside, because I think that reasoning makes a ton of sense, but I think people in reality just have a hard time. They only see the downside more and more, right? Like I got this Ivy League education and this is where I should be. And then if they go out, they're scared to fail, man, because if they fail, then what, right? Then everything they worked for, right? You're a smart guy, right? You've been through the Ivy League system. You've proven yourself. But if you go out and fail, then all of a sudden that identity of the smart guy that is potentially the key to help your whole family, right? That identity starts to evaporate. And a lot of people can't face that evaporation of their self. Did you consider that, or how what are your thoughts on that?
So that's, I'm loving these questions, Toby, by the way. Nobody has asked me these kind of questions before, and I'm loving the way I'm able to think about these. So there are a couple of things here, right, at play. A lot of people are afraid to fail, and that's pretty fundamental to humanity. One of the reasons they're afraid to fail is they need instant gratification. Like humans need instant gratification, and if I go on to work towards an Ivy League education and I don't make it, there are so many people who don't get into the universities that I got into. They were devastated, of course, at first, but they keep trying again. And if they don't make it, that's not the end of life. So a person, if you have ambition and if you know what you want to go after, if you don't get it, you start from scratch again. So if you recollect, what I said was I started from nothing, and now I'm starting from scratch. There is a difference.
Yes.
So when I started from nothing, I had $0 to me, like nothing. But when I'm starting from scratch, I don't have $0 now. I have something in my bank account, but I'm starting from scratch on building a new business for myself. Right. So two things. I'm not looking at instant gratification right now, and there is a very, very high likelihood that I will fail. But when I fail, I know how to pick myself up and go after it again. The worst case scenario is I will lose a few years, but I would have enjoyed trying to get there. And the upside, of course, is a brilliant opportunity on the other side.
Yes. And so let me restate that, because I think you're saying things that I like. Again, maybe this is the way I express things versus the way your engineering mind expresses them, but we're going to say the same things. I think okay. So I think that's a great observation, right? Starting from scratch and starting from nothing are two very different places, right? You can start from nothing, which means you have no cash and you're striving for those opportunities. When you're starting from nothing, right? You enter the equation, right? You enter the environment with all your past experience, right? With everything you've done. And I think, this is so powerful, I think, for people because, even if you go and risk it all, right? You're going to start a new venture, you're going to try something else, and that venture fails. That's only from maybe a monetary viewpoint. When you start over again, even though you're starting from scratch, you're bringing all that experience, right? You're in that failure, you learn a ton, right? This is how it's failing forward in a lot of ways. And again, I think that's so critical, and it's just so hard to get somebody over that hump. Is there, before we kind of
Yeah.
move on to what you have learned in marketing, is there anything else you want to say around this topic?
So I think I wanted to spend like 2 more minutes
Sure.
on this topic. If you could give an example of where people are afraid to fail, I want to make sure that this is pretty concrete, because this could absolutely change somebody's path on how they should not be afraid to fail. So one of the examples is, let's say there is a new budding realtor, right? They are working somewhere, and they want to be a part-time realtor, and they want to make it big in real estate, and they want to leave what they're doing right now and go on to be a full-time realtor, but they're afraid that they will fail. And the failure is not their own. The failure that they have is that they'll fail in front of their family, that they'll fail in front of the society, and they're comparing themselves with a lot of other successful realtors, and they're afraid of losing face. So those are some of the critical elements that they should completely put behind, because it does not matter outside to the society what you do if you're successful or if you fail. If you fail, they'll be like, oh, this guy failed for a few days. And if you're successful, and they'll be like, wow, he's successful for a few more days.
Right.
But after that, you and your family are your own. So the external environment, external society, or whatever you're afraid of losing your faith should not influence your decision in taking a new direction that you want to take.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, and I don't want to belabor this point. I think it's slightly different, though, man. I don't think it's people losing face. I think really, people look. Yeah, man, I could talk so much about this because this is really one of my favorite topics. But I want to stick with you. So yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, I think we can sum it up very quickly by saying, if people want to try something, they should go out, do their best in learning how to do something, right? How to create something in their life, and then go try it, right? Try an experiment, right? This is, in Silicon Valley, this, right? Eric Ries wrote that very famous book a long time ago, The Lean Startup. And the whole lean startup methodology about starting a company is come up with your idea, sketch it out, create a minimum viable product, just something that's barely workable in the marketplace, throw it out there. And see what happens. And we do this all the time. We have ideas. We have our developers throw up a quick website, and then we go very quickly market it to the world and see what the response is. And if it and some things people go, yes, there's a big response. Other things there's not. And here's what I'll tell you, man. Here's what I'll say on this. People, especially creative people, there's some people with just a ton of ideas. And if you are a creative person, or maybe not, right? But you have a range of ideas, and the more ideas you have and the more things you try, the more you're going to fail. That's just a fact, but the more you can try and the more you can fail and then reiterate, the quicker you will find success. This is the difference between, people who want to, overanalyze a radio campaign or an ad campaign. They're like, oh, is this right? This right? And they waste valuable time. And at the end of the day, then we try it or that tactic gets tried. It doesn't work. And they're like, oh, this whole thing doesn't work. And I'm like, no, dude, like that's one thing, or don't. Okay, you can see that I have ideas on this topic, Rohan.
So, Toby, that is a brilliant segue into what I was hoping to talk next. But I think it is about trying and experimentation and trying in volume. So I completely agree with you on that.
All right, well, we'll use that segue to talk about what you wanted to talk about.
So, so the limiting beliefs that I wanted to talk about, right? So there are three fundamental things that I want to outline. So the first one is, and this is, so all three of these are, there will be a lot of debate that you can have on all the three things that I'm going to say. But you never know. I mean, based on how you think about it,
let's try it,
we
man.
might not have a lot of debate. So the first one that I really think is everybody in marketing want better quality leads in this industry, right? I truly believe that you get quality leads by focusing on quantity first, and especially holds true in a social media, internet kind of a lead generation kind of system.
What? Okay. All right. Okay.
So what I mean by that is, like, you cannot just rely on a few quality leads. You cannot just go after searching for quality leads. Like, you cannot create the best marketing campaign to attract the best leads on one single week or a month and then rest on that laurel. So you have to constantly experiment. You have to throw out 50 different campaigns. You have to experiment a lot and get a lot of leads, get a lot of quantity, and figure out how you are going to build out quality leads from that.
Okay, all right, hold on. And see, yeah, there is going to be a lot of debate because that was just number one. So,
Yep.
So here's how I see this, right? I see that in a marketing or advertising campaign, there needs to be a variety of methods. And there are methods, like, again, we put people on radio and television, and the way we write copy, the way we do that, those are very high, super high quality leads. But you're not going to get 30 inquiries a day, right? That's just the facts,
Right?
And then what happens is, you can scroll down into digital, right? You're going to throw some ad on Facebook, for example, and not, and maybe not a thinking way, and you might hit something, and you might get 50 leads, but only one pans out, and I think the challenge here, right? People, I think, can intellectually understand that, but what happens in reality is the fact that people go, okay, I'm gonna invest $1,000 in radio, let's say, right? And they're like, I got 2 good leads. I'm gonna invest $1,000 in Facebook ads, and I got 100, 200 crap leads. People's view, Rohan, is not long enough. They tend to view the efficacy of a platform based on one data point or one trial. So while I agree with everything you said, the challenge is getting people's heads right when they look at trying a new marketing or advertising method, right? So what are your thoughts around realigning people's viewpoint to think maybe in a longer time scale than just run this ad for a week time scale?
So, and I guess this is where one of my core principles comes in, which is, like, you got to focus on process and not necessarily look at results every single time. And a lot of people, like, one of the primary reasons why people are afraid to try out different things in marketing is because they are like, oh, I've tried Facebook ads and it doesn't work. I've tried this, it doesn't work. Radio is so archaic. Who runs radios? Television, nobody watches. All different channels, all different media have their own advantages, and you got to be able to think about this as a business person. So all the business people, all the entrepreneurs, they were not entrepreneurs before, and then they became entrepreneurs. So when they were not, they were relying on some source of income, and that was limited. When they became entrepreneurs, now they have to change their mindset to invest into their business, which was never there before. And that is a fundamental shift that defines how successful an entrepreneur is going to be and how fast they are going to be in it. Like, are you looking at this as an expense, or are you looking at this as an investment into your business? Because if you invest $1 and if you get $3 out of it, why would you not invest $100,000 in it to get $300,000 back?
Yeah,
right?
no, that's
So
insane, right? Like if you, yeah, there's no question, right? If you found a cash machine like that, you should literally, and I 100% believe this, right? If I found a platform or an avenue, a vehicle in which I could invest $1 and get three out, or even get two out, right? I literally would sell everything I own, turn everything into cash, and then throw that money in there, right? Because everything I put in, I'm gonna get double back or triple back. Yeah, I hear you.
exactly, exactly, and there are platforms that the entire planet is leveraging. Like Facebook is a platform, Instagram is a platform, Google, YouTube, they're all platforms. And Google and Facebook are constantly in the top 5, top 10 market cap based on when you look at it, they are there for a reason. Like they work. If they don't work, they would not be in business. Over 90% of Facebook's and Google's revenue is through its ad platforms.
Yeah, right.
So that is really hard for people to understand. Some people are like, yeah, Facebook ads might work, but I tried it. It doesn't work for me. I mean, that's right. One of the limiting beliefs, right? There is no growth mindset there. Like, how do you make Facebook ads work? If it is working for millions of people out there, why does it not work for you? What are you doing different? Or how can you find a vehicle that can actually make it work for you?
Right. You hold on. So you're right about that, right? Like yes, you're right. Here's the problem when it comes to reality and people. So they're like, okay, I have $1,000. Let's say I'm going to invest in Facebook ads. So then I go do that, right? Take my grand, throw it in Facebook ads, and I get nothing back, right? Like I'm sitting on nothing. Now that is that, and that's nothing right now, right? Like because those leads, if I have the process. Right. If I have the process, my job is now to take whatever crap leads or leads that look like garbage from those Facebook ads and then develop that. Yep. Okay. Here's the problem. Correct. The problem is there's two components here that the person doesn't have. Right. So they have the grand to buy ads, but number one, they don't have the expertise in terms of going, okay, what audience, how am I gonna show this ad to? Right. How do I write the copy? How do I create the visuals for the ad? Right. Like they don't have those components, so they need to learn that, and then once, let's say that they get that right, then they now are creating and dumping out a good ad, right, to the right audience, and then but then they get some leads, but the real problem, right, then becomes that they don't have a correct process, because what most people do is go, oh, I got these leads, what's going to convert right now, and then everything else sort of becomes white noise, right? Like I'm just going to ignore that because I sent them an email, they didn't respond back. So in reality, right, this goes back to something you said earlier. Here's what people really should do, right? If they don't know how to do something, buy Facebook ads, radio ads, Google pay-per-click, whatever, right? YouTube, right? There's so many platforms out there that have people that we can sell our product and services to. The reality is people just should, I think, hire an expert who is really good at writing Facebook ads, right? Or writing copy in general, right? When this is the limiting thing. People will try it on their own, and they number one don't know what they're doing, and then they don't have the process, and then and then they realize, well, the reality is, I know I'm talking too much here, Rohan, but the reality is, if they want to do Facebook ads or any mass media, radio and or television or Google pay-per-click, in order to throw out an efficient $1,000 campaign, right? The actual investment might be $4,000, right? Because they need to invest in the guy that knows how to write the copy and write the ad, and then they probably need to invest in some of their infrastructure or processes to then follow up appropriately. And then it becomes daunting. And then people do go, forget it, man. I'm just gonna watch something on YouTube, right? I'm just gonna watch a movie. I'm gonna watch The Notebook on Netflix or whatever.
Do you know why people don't hire?
No,
experts?
I kind of do, but I want to know from you.
Because, okay, let me give you an example.
Okay.
Like people today don't go and, milk cows to get milk for themselves. They don't go and raise crops to get food for themselves. They don't go and hunt animals to get meat for themselves. They rely on experts because they cannot do all those things today. They have not been taught, and it is not intuitive, and it's hard to do all of that. The media buying, Facebook ads, Google ads, it does not seem hard. It feels that people can go and do all of these themselves. How hard can it be? I just need a couple of pictures. I just need to write an ad copy, and I put it on Facebook, or I click that boost button, and I got my leads. So when people don't do, a lot of people, they don't do their own taxes. They hire a CPA because they cannot do it. Right?
Sure.
So when people feel that they can do this themselves, that's when they don't hire experts.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's fundamentally why.
Well, I mean, that's, you simplified it pretty like to the bear, but right. Yeah. People think they can do it. If people want to lose weight, they just go, oh, I just need to buy a membership to the gym. And, oh, I see what that trainer does to that, to my buddy Jimmy, and I don't need that. Right. I can do that on my own. But the reality is they don't. I mean, I think that's human nature. The thing that I was asking about, and we can move off this really quickly, but the thing that I was asking about is, there's really something in people's psyche, right? In like, honestly, like their base fears of, how big is your ambition and what are you risking, right? Those are the things that people just go, no, hold on. I'm going to do it myself. Because the other piece of this is, right, most of us as entrepreneurs, we understand that our destiny, our future is in our hands, and we can shape it however and to whatever degree we like. And it's very difficult, man, to say, I'm going to trust Toby with my $10,000 to see what he does with it, right? Like, we're all control freaks to some degree. And I can tell you that the people who are the most successful and have seen the most success are the people that are willing and able to let go, to say, yeah, here, I'm going to blindly trust Toby or Rohan or Ricky or whoever it is.
Yep.
Here's my cash. Go do what you do. You've spent years and years figuring this out. You go do it. And that's the thing, man. If I could crack people's psyche in that way and sort of get to what they're really afraid of, I think I could turn a lot of people's businesses around. But it's really difficult. Look, man, we got to start. We got to go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we got to start wrapping up. Before we do that, I mean, I'll let you have the last word on that thing, and then I have just three sort of basic questions I ask everybody.
Okay. So I wanted to add value to your users, right? So I kind of wrote 3 bullet points that I wanted your users and I keep saying users because of Silicon Valley, your listeners need to take away, if nothing, right? So the first point is they need to have the right mindset to be able to grow. So these are the limiting beliefs that I want them to not have. So the right mindset, the abundance mindset, is what a lot of people lack. So it's really hard to come by, but once you have that abundance mindset, you will see that a lot of doors automatically start opening up for yourself. Like, you have to have a huge amount of responsibility, extreme ownership in a way, and you will see that there is so much abundance out there. So that's number one. The second piece is you need to be able to simplify your process, whatever it is. Like, if you're a buyer agent or if you're a listing agent, simplify your process and don't do everything yourself. Like, learn to delegate, right? Write down all your steps and outsource and hire for repetitive, non-you requiring tasks. Like, hire an ISA for prospecting and hire a showing agent if you want, and hire an admin to do the administrative paperwork. So you can focus and you can simplify the process and you can scale much, much faster. And you can even write down every single transaction that you have had in a lot of detail. Talk about what went well, what did not go well, what could have been better. And then you can learn so much and simplify and then have a process around this. And then you can scale this much, much faster. Right. And the third piece is you have to know your numbers. Like if you don't know how much your GCI should be at the end of the year, you won't know how many closings you need, how many appointments you need, how many leads you need, and then you won't know how much you have to spend on marketing to be able to get to those many number of leads.
Right. And so to rephrase, for some reason, I hear the way you're saying things, and I sort of like see them differently, but it's the same thing, right? So, number one, people's mindset, right? Like that's a giant one, right? And that's what people struggle with, on I think on a day-to-day or month-to-month basis in terms of doing what they want to do to achieve what they want to achieve. So let's say that their mindset is right. The second point is, hire people out, right? Find leverage, right? This is the thing about the cool thing about being an entrepreneur is that you can hire someone to do something, and you put $1 in on their payroll, right? Their expenses, and you should get two back. This is another sort of machine, right? Finding leverage in ways that you cannot or are not right now is super important. And then the tracking everything. I think tracking everything and looking at this. Here's what I'll tell you, right? So you and I, dude, I was in the Valley in '98, right? I did a startup, right? Basic startup. We had to raise $8 million. So I'm very I know that world extremely well. I still know a lot of people in it, but when it comes to tracking, right? One of the things in the Valley is what is the lifetime value of a user, right? Or a client, and if again, this goes back to time frame, right? If somebody can see a lead today and go, overall, the lifetime value of my client, of one client, is $50,000, right? Because I get one referral and that person gives me a referral and they get a repeat, however you track it, right? Then all of a sudden, all these things become much more clear, right? If the lifetime value of a client is 20 grand, let's say, right? Then all of a sudden, when you are throwing in $1,000 into Facebook ads, or $3,000 into radio, or whatever the avenue might be, everything just becomes more attractive, right? Because I have 100 leads, and only one is going to pan out, but that one, if I develop it, right, is 20 grand, which that's well worth the $1,000 I just spent on Facebook. So yes,
exactly.
Right. So
and you also need to know the cost of acquisition, because the lifetime value is not realized in 1 month. The lifetime value is realized over the life of the customer.
That's right.
So if you also tie that up with the cost of acquisition, it takes $2,500 to get your first client and have that lifetime value be at $50,000, then you can get something that is short term. How much do you spend today to get that $50,000 over lifetime? And that puts things in perspective for a lot of people.
For everybody, that puts everything in perspective in terms of what you're spending and what you're doing, and even what platforms. Because the difference between something like a Facebook ad, right? You can throw, if you know how to create copy, and you know how to write an ad, you know how to pick an audience, right? You can literally get leads today, right now, boom,
Yep.
But other avenues, right? The more you warm them up online, right? Let's say you invite somebody to a webinar or an event, and you're talking to first-time homebuyers, right? Those are not going to convert, or they're not going to come into your funnel nearly as quick, but you're going to have a higher conversion rate. Yes, man. See, we should have talked about. This is really what we should have talked about, man. We should have taken your methodical brain and mine and put them together and come up with a real a way to, because there is a very direct correlation in a lot of ways with the cost per lead or cost per acquisition and the time frame, right? Generally, the things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And again, that's a whole podcast we could talk about. All right, man.
We could definitely do that in 6 months or something. And also, the cost of acquisition. You brought up multiple different platforms, right? The cost of acquisition is not the same across multiple platforms, but you also know that the lifetime value of customers that come from different platforms is also different.
Wait, well, I don't know if I agree with that. I think once somebody becomes a client, regardless of how they entered my world, the lifetime value should equal out to be the same. The difference between the cost per lead, right? A higher cost per lead on radio equals a sooner closing time cycle or putting money back in the bank. But whether that comes in on Facebook or whether that comes on radio, the lifetime value should be the same.
So here is why it's different. It all boils down to expectations. So certain platforms, the way you advertise, it's on a very short cycle. It's on a very quick cycle, right? So you have, let's say, for example, for Facebook, a lot of people complain that the leads are bad and they see something visually and they have something advertised for them and they go ahead and purchase a product with you or a service with you, and they don't like it in a month and they go away. But if you bring in people through, let's say, a webinar, there is a completely different kind of expectation, and they have seen you up close and personal much better, and then they want to interact with you, and there is a longer life cycle to acquire a customer from a webinar, for example. Their expectations are grounded. They know how long it takes to see the return on investment for them, and then they are more satisfied customers in general, and the more satisfied customers yield to better lifetime value of the customer.
Yeah, well, on this point, I think we'll have to agree to disagree because we don't have time to sort it out.
Okay.
But I do, yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I don't want to unpack that. Good job. All right. So look, here's what I always ask people, right? So
Sure.
you have started from scratch. Well, you started from nothing, and then you started from scratch a couple times, which is fantastic. Good for you that you're able to do that. What book has been the most influential for you in terms of managing your mindset in order to make these sort of leaps and say, I'm going to start from scratch and risk it all?
So one book is hard to give based on the question that you asked, right? It's not one. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was the very first book that changed my mindset on how to achieve things in my life, how to have a vision, how to have a mission statement, how to go after these things, how to have an end in mind, right? How to put people first. So a lot of things came into like practicality for me from that book. But there are so many other books that I continue to learn from and I continue to grow with. And the one that I've recently been learning from is Sell It Like Rohan. This guy, Rohan, he is in New York. So he has a book, and one of the core messages in his book that I resonate with so much is how many balls in air do you have at any given point in time? Are you trying to have the most number of balls in air at any given point in time? Because you are bound to make mistakes. You are bound to drop the balls. For you to grow, you have to focus on quantity. So that's my mindset when I'm starting from scratch, because if I don't focus on quantity, if I don't focus on getting as many people in the door as possible, I'm not going to be able to scale, and I'm not going to be able to get to where I want to go.
Yeah. So I hear you on that. And again, I wish we had more time to unpack that. But here's what I'll say on the book. I think 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I think everybody should be. I think that's a book that everybody should read at least once a year, maybe once every 2 years, right? I think that goes along with Think and Grow Rich. I think that goes along with How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think there's some very basic books that everybody should have and refer to every year because it's timeless.
They're Bibles.
They're Bibles, right? I started saying timeless, and I was like, that is such a bad, stupid word to say. But yeah, you're right. It's sort of biblical in a lot of ways because they're just basic truths about how to manage, and really, how to manage your time in your life and treat other people. Okay, what do you? Rohan, right, in your starting from nothing, right? You've done this a couple times. Do you have a habit or routine you think has contributed to how you're able to shape shift so far in your career?
Yeah, I guess the simplest way to put it is I focus on one thing and I try to repeat it as much as I can. Like I don't do 100 different things, even though my artsy mind wants to like drop what I'm doing now and go to the next one. I force myself to stick to one thing and repeat it. So that repetition is what got me into Ivy Leagues. That repetition is what got me to be a successful senior product manager in Silicon Valley. And that repetition is what is helping me set appointments every single day with people and close appointments with every single people.
So so focus on one thing, right? Or that's what I kind of took out of that. Like how long do you focus on one thing before you go, yeah, this doesn't work, or yeah, this is working, let me double down on it?
So for me, like I started doing things for like 3 to 6 months at a time, and it depends on what it is, right?
Yeah.
So like some of my daily habits, like I'll never change in my life. I drink a liter of water as soon as I get up. That's the first thing I do, and then I go for a jog, or I do a lot of qigong, like Chinese Baduan kind of exercises, or yoga or meditation. Like those are like fundamental. I don't change it. Like for example, now my routine is every single day for my business, I get up and I make sure that I'm maximizing on setting appointments. Like how do I make sure that my calendar is filled with people to talk to, and my sales reps calendar is filled with people to talk to?
Yeah.
And once I get that going for about 3 to 6 months, that will become natural. And then I'll focus on a second thing, and I will repeat on that every single day.
Okay. That's good. All right, man. Well, let me ask you this, and I don't ask this of everybody. Like, what's something that I didn't ask you that I should have?
So, you didn't ask me what is one thing that people should take away from this podcast.
Okay.
So, so there is a saying in Sanskrit, right? It's an Indian language, ancient language. It's a saying in Sanskrit. It's called, I'm going to say it, it's a 10-second long mouthful statement. It's karmanye vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur buhu ma te sango stvakarmani. It essentially means you have to perform your duty, but you cannot be entitled to fruits or the results of it. You need to focus on the input and not necessarily worry about the output. And that is so critical if you are essentially trying to overcome your limiting beliefs, if you're trying to overcome, why is this happening to me? Why am I not able to scale? Why am I not getting that listing? Why am I not able to close? Why is it so hard to acquire one single customer? Those are the limiting beliefs that you can easily overcome if you stop focusing on the outcome and start focusing on the inputs.
Yeah, and you said something to that effect early on, right? Focus on the process, right? Don't just focus on doing the thing. You said Look at the process instead of something. But yeah, I think that's great. Focus on the process, because and here's why I would say that, and then we're going to let you go, but. I think that's so important because we as entrepreneurs, right, with limited resources, right, whether that's time or money or both, I'll tell you about me, right? Like I go through when I think of a new way to market to a group of people, I go through tons and tons of cognitive load, right? Tons and tons. My brain is working overtime, running through running through all the scenarios of it, right? So my brain is so worked out that I really need to, once I put that in place, right, in order for that to sort of honestly like work out of my system, I have to let it sit for 3 months to go, okay, yeah, yes or no. Just because, again, the cognitive load, the amount that I've already invested is so high that and shifting that load to then something else to try. I think that's so great. I think that's something I can take away, right? Focus on the process and not the outcomes. All right, man. Listen, I know that you're working on something new in terms of a business, and you get agents leads. Where can people find more about you and what you do for realtors out there?
So my handle so the easiest way to get me is through Facebook or Instagram, because that's where I practically live. And my handle is Real Estate Rohan, right? Type in Real Estate Rohan and you can find me. Send me a message, hit me up, DM. I love connecting with people because at the end of the day, my why is to show people that this can be done, show people how to be successful, and I would love to share my message, brainstorm, whatever. Happy to help.
Yeah, that's great, and that's Rohan. Like the way you said it, maybe it was just my earphones. It almost sounded like what was it again? What's your handle?
So Real Estate
Rohan.
ROH.
Yeah.
Yep.
ROHAN. I just wanted to point that out because a little bit sounded like Real Estate Wuhan, and I'm like, well,
No.
people are like Real Estate Wuhan. I want nothing to do with that thing. All right, Real Estate Rohan.
No.
That's cool, man. Hey, I appreciate you carving the time out today.
Thank you so much, Toby. Wonderful being on your show.
You got it. Thanks, Rohan. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's go.